Today, we are getting a glimpse into the world behind Halloween Horror Nights. We're going to speak to someone who played one of its iconic characters. All this and more coming up on Haunt Culture. Good evening, ghouls and beasts, and welcome to another enticing episode of Haunt Culture. I'm so excited because we're going to be talking about Universal's Halloween Horror Nights of Orlando. I've been a huge fan of Horror Nights for years, but I actually only started going in 2018. I've been curious as to what all goes on behind the scenes. We are going to hear first-hand experience from someone who's actually worked there. Today, my guest is Adam Chesley. I've worked with him for years at Scarewinds. Before that, Adam spent 2 seasons working at Halloween Horror Nights in Orlando. He worked the seasons known as Tales of Terror and Sweet 16. He played the icon known as Eddie Schmidt. We are going to talk about his experience working at the country's biggest Halloween event. Thanks for being here, Adam.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah.
Creepy entrance music. Do I bring the chainsaw out now, or do I have to wait till the right time?
Any time is good for chainsaw.
Every time is good for chainsaws.
All right, let's get into it. So, what first brought you to Halloween Horror Nights?
Well, I was living in Orlando at the time, and just wanted to do something fun and exciting. Universal was having their Halloween Horror Nights. I always liked going to it, and I want to be a part of that stuff. So I like scaring people, as I think everyone that's probably listening to this is probably doing the exact same thing. It's going, yeah, I want to learn how to scare. I want to do all this. So Universal was a great place to start. They had a great background in it. Like you said, they are one of the country's biggest. So they certainly have the money to do it, and I got a chance to be part of that.
So what was the audition process like at that time?
It was fairly basic. You walked into a room, there was a bunch of talent people there. You didn't really know who they are. They just basically said, describe yourself, do an ad-libbed thing of, hey, can you be a clown? Can you be a vampire? Can you be a scary scientist? Can you do all this stuff? And it was just an ad-lib thing. I've always been very good at ad-libbing. I've been in theater. My mom was a theater teacher. So I've been on stage since I was 7. And then in production, so ad-libbing, keeping it up, keeping it fresh, that was always something that I really liked to do, and it was just basically something that was fun. It was easy. You could be a scary scientist and wrap things around there. You got to use props if you wanted to, but it was mostly just go, scare me, do something. It was a pretty basic process, and then you were pretty much hired. I mean, unless you did something that was really bad or you just didn't have any energy. And I've seen it. I've seen people behind, next to me are like, really? That's what you came up with? You're here for this? Okay. To me, that was a big thing. I'm like, if you didn't perform, if you didn't go over the top, like, how are you going to stand out? How are you going to do anything? I want to stand out. I want to do my own thing. So that was it. You just went there, got hired, put you through the basic Universal training, and that was it.
So, in 2005, the theme was Tales of Terror. This is when they introduced the Storyteller Icon. She spun the tale that was about the Terror Queen. All the zones and mazes, their stories connected to a larger story arc. What was your character that year?
I was part of the chainsaw drill team. When I first got my audition, they asked, are you comfortable using a chainsaw? I was a big, tall guy at the time. I still am. And it's a physically demanding job. You're carrying something that's there, and they're like, do you feel comfortable doing this? Do you have any experience? Being in Florida, I was there during the 5 hurricanes that they had in the 1 year. So I'm like, yeah, I have a big, still 760 rancher that I have around. I use it all the time and cut down big trees. And they're like, oh, so you're comfortable using them? I'm like, yeah. So one thing led to another, and that was it. So I was part of the chainsaw drill team. Chainsaw up, warmed up, ready to go. You know, we're going to do cadence number 5, you know, come out there and be, you know, do our little thing and yell back. You had a guy he was a drill sergeant, you know, and he would just go and walk, and he had great cadences, and he would move them to the actual, like, terror and horror stuff wherever we were. So I don't remember him, but I just remember, like, and you just repeat whatever he says, and I kill them every day. You know?
Oh, that's so cool.
We were allowed to do stuff with the chainsaws, not lift them up over your head, or of course not strike anybody with them, but one of the big things was scraping them on the ground. Of course, they don't have a chain, which is the standard. You just take the chain off of it, and it's just making the noise. But when you scrape it along the ground on somebody's feet, like, it definitely makes a noise, kind of like the sliders do at Scarowinds. So, but it's a good area there. So there's a lot of big open spaces up from the entrance all the way to the main stage. We'd walk around. We had a whole battle against the clowns. That was a big thing too. So in the storyline of that, so which actually moves into next year, which we could talk about in a little bit. But that was that was it. It was definitely fun, but it was physically exhausting. You know, you're holding that thing for 45 minutes at a time, running around, doing stuff. So I did send you a picture of one of the times I had all the bloods crosses on them. So that was one of my characters, of course. You know, just wearing the white T-shirt, all the prop blood that was on there. So, which mostly got sweated off, so that my shirt turned orange and pink and all that other stuff.
What was the average start of a haunt day back then? You know, the makeup process, all that.
You came in there normally an hour to 2 hours beforehand, before the haunt actually started. Every maze had their own makeup. Every maze had their own staging area where you got changed, where you had costumes. So instead of going to one generalized location, you know, and everyone get their costumes and everyone get their makeup, you know, you had this area over here, you had this area over here, and you just had to go clock in, get to your location, you know, which might be across the park. But that was also, again, with Universal being as big as it was, so you didn't want the clowns walking through to the toy area, to the scary area, to the vampire stage. So everyone was there, and you had your own little groups. One thing that was a big thing with Universal that I liked is that there was actually 2 separate groups of cast members per maze, per attraction. So you basically worked 45 minutes on and 45 minutes off for the entire time. But of course, when you were there, you had to work, because you had a 45-minute break afterwards. So you do that, you're off for 45 minutes, on for 45 minutes off. So Group A, Group B, and they would do that in all the mazes. They would reset them, and it was definitely a welcome break, which is kind of a weird thing. When I came to Scarowinds, I'm like, oh, you just got to keep on working, huh? Okay, pace yourself.
I think you kind of already went over this, but you worked with chainsaws, so what was the process you had to go through to get trained on those?
They walked you through them. They were still chainsaws. They were special in terms of the way that they used like a special type of gas. I don't know if it was very high octane, it was perfectly mixed with whatever, but it smelled different. It smelled different than a 2-stroke chainsaw. You get that. That's part of the thing. You get that smell of the old gas and the oil and the smoke. This, to me, it smelled more like race gas. And it was in a special thing. It was more purple. I don't know if it was just the oil that they used or whatever, but if they were special chainsaws, they didn't leak, they didn't smoke, whatever. I didn't really get more of that, but basically it was, this is your chainsaw. Like, just like you're issued the military, like this is your tool that you need to scare. If you break it, you won't have it. And of course, it was a proper warm-up procedure, proper using it procedure, shutdown procedure, cool down. Lots of times we didn't even use them. We just walked around with them. Like, that they're here. Like, it's here. Like, we need to start it. Like, I could. It's more the buildup of fear of going like, I could start it. Is he going to start it? Is he going to chase me with it? What's he going to do?
All right, let's jump into 2006. This was the Sweet 16 Horror Comes Home. This was the season that they had Jack the Clown, the director, caretaker, and the storyteller all come together for one heck of a season. I know a lot of Horror Night fans say this is like one of the best seasons, if not the best season they've ever had. And this was the season that you played Eddie Schmidt, also known as Edgar Sawyer or Eddie Dice Slayer. His original backstory was he had grown up watching horror movies, and it led to him creating his own haunt attraction. And then there were these mischievous teens that set fire to his haunt while he was still inside, and it kind of drove him crazy. He got scars on his face. And then he was supposed to be the main icon of the 2001 season. He was going to have a chainsaw, and he was supposed to kill Jack the Clown and carry around a severed clown head. It sounded real cool, real intense. But then the events of 9/11 happened, and Universal made the right choice to kind of tone things down a bit. You know, replacing gore with green ooze, stuff like that. And then
no blood, just green.
Yeah.
No red, all green.
And then the sad part was they took out Eddie and put Jack again as the icon, which they later brought back Eddie, which you got to play him 1 year. So Eddie was eventually brought back, reintroduced as Jack's younger brother, Eddie Schmidt.
2001, when he first came out, there was a lot of hype with him that he was supposed to be the really bad, I'm going to kill everyone, I'm going to kill Jack, I'm going to kill the director, I'm going to kill everyone. It was just, there's going to be more gore. Like, that was his big thing. That was in 2001. And then everything happened with 9/11, and they just got rid of him completely. Because, like, that's how they built him up. And I was living in Orlando in 2001, so I remember all that stuff of going, like, there's going to be all this, you know, carnage and death and all this. And so, like, that happened, and going, well, no more of that. So when they brought him back in 2006, this was supposed to be his return, and they revamped him. They put him as, like, as you said, Jack's brother. And his backstory was he hated clowns. Although he was supposed to be a half clown of all this, he hated clowns, which, like, he just hated the whole thought of them. Like, they're not scary, they're all that, you know, they're not all that, there's nothing wrong with clowns. You know, you know, clowns want to kill people, I can kill people, you know, my team can kill people. So Eddie actually enlisted the chainsaw drill team, all coming together, to fight against the clowns that were Jack's posse. So it was a fight against Eddie versus the clowns. Oh. So Eddie was really big into, like, the hacker movies, the really gory, you know, the Rob Zombie type of, like, over the top, like, you see a lot of gory stuff. There's just, ooh, like, that's the stuff that makes me, like, you know, I'm looking at movies like, ooh, I like that. That's fun, you know. And it's not the suspense stuff. It's just the Friday the 13th, like, he's going to be there. He might not be, but he's there. All of a sudden, boom, you're dead. You know, the ICP type of stuff where you're like, you know, I'm just going to do all this nasty carnage stuff and then, you know, cut your head off and put a chicken in it or something like that. just that type of stuff. So 2006, they reopened and they revamped his maze, which is called Run, but they moved it to loosely be based off the movie Hostel, which at that time was the, you know, you can rent a room to torture people, and they would kidnap people to be tortured. And that's what it was based off. So it was just rooms and rooms of being tortured. So you'd have the high-paying individuals, and then you'd have the people that would be tortured, and the clients and the people that are being tortured, and that's how it was run. Eddie, that was his maze. That's what he did. he started this whole thing that it was, I forgot the name of it. I'm sure you can probably find it in the notes or whatever, but it was disguised as a certain company of visual oddities and stuff like that. And it was basically that, but you'd go in there, and the way the guest experienced it was you're coming in to view this as a potential client. So you'd go in there and then you'd see different rooms, and every room would be different in terms of, do you like electrocution? There was a lawnmower, and they would take a lawnmower and just run it against somebody. There was a meat grinder that would spray people with water. Just all the different types of effects and all the different types of things that you could think of. And then at the end, Eddie was there to sell you his final thing. And if you didn't like it, then you became one of the tortured. So, but that was his big thing. He enlisted the help of the chainsaw drill team, who stayed around that entrance, which was where Earthquake and Jaws was in Universal Studios, in that queue line right there. And that was the time. So we would go out, we would talk to I had a chainsaw, they had a chainsaw, and we'd talk, and it was just the things. But the characters really never mixed. Jack was over on one side, Eddie was over on another, because if we were together, there's a story. So then there's carnage. You can't be having that in the middle of the midway there. That's not good for business.
Yeah. So overall, for the event, what was the whole Sweet 16 experience like for you?
To be moved up into a place like that, kind of the same when you guys deal with Scare Force, like to be moved up in there, that was a big experience, to know that I'm taking part in somebody else's bigger dream. I'm taking somebody's vision. Somebody's put a lot of thought into this character, so I'm going to make it the best I can. If you want me to be a monkey, I'm going to be the best monkey ever. I'm going to be throwing barrels out like Donkey Kong. I got everything. I always want to take that one step further. I always want to stand out even more. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. But I'm going to try. I'm going to do whatever it takes to make sure that you are enjoying yourself, and I'm portraying what you want me to portray.
You kind of mentioned that you knew who played Jack, but did you know some of the other actors who played the other icons?
Loosely. I knew that who they were, but we never really talked. You being in another maze, you don't really talk to anybody else, because you're never in a big group together. Where Scarowinds, everyone's in the same group, everyone's a team, everyone's, I can talk to people in this maze and this maze and this maze. I had my own group. We hung out with the run people, and that was it, which was actually great because it was right by the employee entrance. So you walk in, you go through the gate, and that's it. We're the first building on the right, to get in there. So it was really easy to sit there and park and do all that other stuff. So we had a very large air-conditioned break room, which was great. It was just a big, I'm going to say meeting space. One of the things, this was 2005, 2006, so Rock Band, or Guitar Hero was out at that time. So I actually brought my PlayStation 2 in a backpack with 2 guitars, and they would have fun doing that. There was a big TV that was there, so we hooked it all up, and that was our 45 minutes. People would actually run back to the break room to be like, I'm playing, we're playing out hard. I'm going to see this one and this, and you're going to play this one, and, or I challenge you to this, and there was a whole, tournament, a whole level thing. So you have fun on stage, and then you have fun off stage. Wow. So there was a big family. Being just that group and having twice the amount of people, it's a big group. But you never really see the other group. You see them when you're first starting, but, your A group, your B group. And, everybody always wants, A group's better than B group, first line, second string. There were people that were better in A, and there were people that were better in B. I think I was on the B for Eddie when I was Eddie, but I was on the A group when I was just a regular scare actor, which was just me being one of the terrorizers, or the people that clean up. So
you've already kind of mentioned throughout the interview, but what are some of the differences working as a monster at Halloween Horror Nights rather than at Scarewinds?
Big difference, of course, is having the two teams of people. Halloween Horror Nights, to me, was very set and site oriented. They didn't really so much focus a lot on the actual actors, as a lot of their stuff was pop scares. Or buttons. You know, you press a button, you'd wait 3 seconds, and then the effect would happen and you would pop out. So you would step on it, 2, 3, 4, boom. You know, and it's the pop-up or the slamming of the door or something like that, and that's all you do. You know, and it was okay. And even when I went back there several years later, and we were going there, and that's what we had noticed when we were there. We were going like, these sets are amazing. I went to this whole thing. It felt like I was under the sea in this sunken pirate ship, you know, and instead of a ghillie suit, it's all a seaweed monster. And I'm like, look at that, you know. I'm looking at all the technical aspects. I like all that stuff, you know, for being in theater and stuff like that. That's one of those, like, that's what I like seeing. You know, the character development is great. But in that 5 seconds that I sit there and I expose myself to scaring you, it's hard to tell you the whole story. Hi, I'm Eli Slay. I do this and I do this and I hate clowns and I do this and I don't care. You know, like there's extended stories for extended times that you can talk to people, just like in Scare Force when you guys are out there and you're telling people your whole story. Like, hey, have you seen the Boogeyman? Have you seen this? Have you seen Jack? Have you seen, you know, the witch or the queen? So, like, that's it. You know, and it becomes a big story. This was just it was mostly based on pop scares, where Scarewinds mostly deals more with character development and having a storyline in each area. Another benefit of working at Universal Studios versus going to Scarewinds, when the run ended, when Haunt ended, and you were terminated, as you know, because you're a seasonal employee, you actually retained your employee benefits the entire year after that.
Whoa.
So you were still a Universal Studios employee, even though you weren't, for the entire year, which meant you got free parking, you got a lot of benefits, you got food for like next to nothing for the entire year. Kind of like, you know, better than a gold pass. You know, you can go there anytime. You can go into the employee entrance. You had your little ID card, and it was still valid. You can't work. You can't clock in because there's no jobs. I see your face. It's like it's blowing your mind here. Yeah. I know. But that was another really big benefit, because you can go there. You can go to the City Walk area. You can go to all the concerts. You can, you know, get discounts on stuff. And around that area, with it being so touristy, there's a lot of benefits for employees. I also worked at Disney at the time, you know, at other times. So I had perks for Disney. I had perks for Universal Studios. I had, you know, all these things. So it's like, you go into Ponderosa, like, hey, 15%, please. You know? This one guy was sitting there. He was a lawyer. Really great guy. Kind of like one of those, I want to be like this guy. Like, he had no business. You know, he's not doing this for money at all. He made more money in a session than he did working for 2 years working here. You know, he's rich, you know, and he would come there, and the last day he got us a full pig roast, which I think I actually have a picture of too, and it was a full hog, like, which is nice because you're just tearing into this thing for being in a show that was basically, you know, being in a maze that actually showed us, you know, you're tearing apart stuff. There's pigs' heads in there. He got us a whole pig, you know, cut it all up, and we're sitting there hacking at it like, yeah, I'm going to get these back. You know, and it was fun. But he did that whole thing. He brought in a magician. He brought in all these different tricks and stuff like that. And it was just fun to do. And I always wanted to emulate that.
Well, I think this is a good segue into what advice would you give someone who really wants to be a monster at Halloween Horror Nights?
The most important thing that I can think of right now is kind of what I touched base on earlier, is that you're an actor, and you have a job to extend somebody's vision of that character onto the world. You can bring your own spin on it if it still fits with that character. That's what the most important part would be, is to think of what they want. You're part of someone else's vision. Be part of that vision.
All right, so now it's time for the part of the show where we tell scare stories.
Oh my God!
Yes. So why don't you share some of your best scare stories with us, Adam?
The one time, the best scare story that I always do tell, though, from the time that I actually did try to scare somebody, being the overly enthusiastic person I was always trying to be, I would always try to find the people that couldn't really be scared a lot. You know, I mean, to scare the group of young teenage girls and hear them squeal and run away. Like, all right, I'm looking for that, the tough people. I'm a big guy myself. I like a challenge. The best scare that I ever had, I was at the Run House as Eddie. As people are leaving, I'm as they're walking out this way, I'm in a hidden pathway here, and they can't really see me. And I remember hearing a whole bunch of people screaming, and it was the freight train of frightening people. The people that are just grabbed onto that person in the front of them, just like, oh my God, not even looking. Just, they can't get through the whole maze, they're screaming. And there was a mixed group. It was guys, girls, young, old. And in the front, there's the person who's trying to be, not scared. The big guy. And that's why, we've always told people, never scare the first person in the group. They're normally the people that are not scared. Mm-hmm. You're never going to get the good reaction doing that. But I found a great way to do that. It was the big hallway, like just as you're going to be exiting the maze. You exit through the final flapper curtain. Then you have to go through this hallway to get to the exit where the queue line is. So the queue line came in, the exit came out there, and that's where the managers would normally stay. We always had police officers, Orlando police officers that were always there. I'm sitting there in my little cubby hole. Chainsaw was working perfect that day. Half a pull, nothing's already on, ready to go. Good throttle response, the technical aspects of all that stuff. You want your stuff to be performing as well as possible. They're all going, and I hear the guy in the front, man, that was nothing, man, blah, blah, blah. I see through the thing, it's one of whatever they were called, the Hispanic guys with the really long white shirts, like the pure white shirts that are like past their waist, almost to their knees, like the cholo type things, and they're walking. He's got the long jeans on, and everybody's just kind of bundled up next, behind him. He's trying to be the big thug, so they're in my hallway by themselves, and everyone's there going, "Oh, that was such a great minute! Oh, it's over!" Bust open in there. I yell at the top of my lungs, "I'm looking for kneecaps!" And I rip open the chainsaw, and everyone just pushes this gangster down on the ground and tramples him over. I didn't do it. I didn't touch him. And it was far enough away. I don't touch anybody. But everyone pushed him over. They ran through it, and his beautiful little white shirt had all these black and red footprints all up his back. And I was like, I almost broke character. That was my best scare story of all times. That was definitely the one that stuck with me, that I've told people before. In terms of other scare stories, I mean, from working at Scarewinds and stuff like that, I mostly worked in management. It was mostly just seeing people expand themselves in characters. Like the people, like I said, the big introverts that were really shy, the people that came in mid-runs, those people that are like, I'm just kind of being thrown in here, like, what do I do? Like, who am I? Like, let's work together. And I'd go there and I'd be helping them. I'd be in the same room with them, in the interims between groups. All right, here are some things. Why don't we try this? Maybe this is working. Or, that was a great scare. You did awesome. Did you see that? Mm-hmm. Building up their confidence. Next thing you know, they're getting Scare Actor of the Year.
You've given me more than even I expected. So you've blown my mind a few times with some of the stories behind Universal and all that. It was incredible. So thank you so much for sharing.
Glad you got to be experienced. Glad I still remembered some of it from 15 years ago.
Oh, jeez, yeah. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for this week's episode. If you're a Halloween Horror Nights actor and you want to share your stories and experiences, please comment down below. I would love to hear some more stories. If you want to see some of the sites and videos that I use as sources for this, I have them all in the description below. Until next time,
keep it spooky.